Hey guys, Tomer here and welcome to a video. Now, this video will be part of a series that I was going to do on my channel anyways a couple years ago, but I never managed to do, pretty much. The first video of that series is a video called On Post-Nationalism, which is actually the third most popular video on my channel in terms of views. So since I'm seeing that there is demand for the series, and ever since I posted that video, I wanted to transition my channel to a more serious center of discussion about politics, economics, philosophy, political theory, and other related topics. Effectively, what I've been trying to do is rekindle this series, since I'm seeing there's demand and since I want to do this and I really like to do this, and since I have the time now. I also have a new microphone. You can probably guess by the audio quality that this is the case. Effectively, I wanted to restart the series. And the second topic we're going to discuss on this journey into all these different topics is economic systems, really. I want to talk about capitalism, I want to talk about socialism, and I want to talk about my own economic views on the topic. I often see on the internet, on debates and forums and wherever else, this discussion between capitalism versus socialism. And you get a lot of very vanilla conservatives who will be like, well, socialism is when the government does stuff, which is a silly definition to say the least. But you'll get even some other people on the other side who are like, well, socialism is Denmark and Sweden and Scandinavian countries. Socialism is when a minimum wage exists, some other nonsense like that. And it's also equally silly. In fact, I'd say that this silliness is a bit beyond that. Well, it is not a lie that social democracy was linked to socialism historically. Socialists don't associate social democracy as part of their movement. They don't consider them part of their movement. They consider social democrats to be capitalists, reformist capitalists, and they don't like them for that reason, precisely. In fact, they think social democracy distracts the worker from a class struggle and obtaining his rights, and lulls them into a false sense of economic security with all these programs for welfare and all these, in general, the social net and all these other policies that social democrats want to put forth. Now, the debate always boiled down to effectively the capitalist conservatives saying that, well, we support the rights of Amazon and Facebook and Twitter and all these other big companies that have billions of dollars in assets and whatever else. All of these, we support their rights in the name of the free market and capitalism. And the socialists being like, oh, these big companies, we hate them, whatever. And the one thing that I always disliked about that debate is that I don't want to defend Facebook, I don't want to defend Amazon, I don't want to defend Walmart. I don't care to defend these companies. These companies don't need my defense. They have lawyers, teams of lawyers, they have billions of dollars, they can fund whatever they want, they're already interfering in elections and politicians and in general the political system. I don't want to defend them. Not only do I not want to defend them, I despise them, in fact. I don't like them one bit. And if it were up to me, they wouldn't be able to do what they do now. They wouldn't be so free. But at the same time, the socialists barge in and they'll talk to you about, socialism now, whatever. And when you look at socialist countries, they didn't tolerate small or medium-sized businesses. They thought that was a perversion of socialism. They thought that was a product of capitalism. And they were not wrong. But they were wrong in one thing, in trying to quash it. Because I don't want the lady down the street that has a flower shop to have that taken from her by armed goons of a socialist government. I'm not interested in that. And there are many socialists who have given me apology in the sense that, that's not going to happen, you're being hyperbolic. No, I'm not being hyperbolic. All you have to do is look into the countries. All you have to do is really look at Czechoslovakia. They implemented a more liberal form of socialism in the 60s, and then the Soviet Union invaded them with tanks to force them to toe the Stalinist line of the time. It wasn't Stalinist, it was The Marxist-Leninist line, let's just say that, of, well, we ban all businesses and everything's owned by the state. And I have a problem. My advocacy is with small and medium-sized businesses. I don't want the corporations, but I don't want those small and medium-sized businesses to be expropriated or, I don't know, collectively owned. No. I want small, mainly family-owned, small and medium-sized family-owned businesses. Now, there's also the issue of national chains of stores. I generally don't have a problem with national chains. I have a problem with multinational corporations. If there's a company that has stores all over a country, but it's of that country, it's of my country, and employs people of my country, they're generally very fair and good and just with their wages. I've seen this with the supermarkets in my country. In general, the workers at the supermarkets say they get generous benefits overall. You know, the cashiers and other people. I've spoken to them. They live good lives. They're taken care of. Now, this is not true for all industries. This is not true for all national chains of any type. But in general, national chain stores are not the problem. We're dealing with the problem is predatory multinational corporations. And in wanting to support small businesses and medium-sized businesses and these national chains to a degree, again, I'm not fully in favor. I've come at an impasse where I don't have a precise economic ideology. I'm somewhere in an abyss between state capitalism, market socialism, and distributism in my economic thought. For brief overviews of these three, state capitalism is effectively, well, capitalism practiced by the state, where a lot of things are state owned, where the capitalists have to collaborate with the state to get things done. I'm not statist enough for that to be the system. I think that is too much of an impediment on economic freedom. And I think that does, in fact, lead to a sort of government mandated rule of corporations, which is effectively what happened with the fascist Italians and the Nazi Germans, who employed this form of state capitalism. Now, when we go over to market socialism, it's effectively socialism, but with a market framework, in the sense that, well, yeah, things are collectively owned and state-owned, but they compete in the free market with other countries. Now, this is a more liberal form of socialism, you could call it, I guess. And it's kind of the form that countries like China and Vietnam have adopted to a degree, not fully. And the idea behind it is that, you know, you get all the public and social good that socialism does in terms of social harmony, where people are not divided by gigantic socioeconomic inequalities. But at the same time, you also compete in free markets, and you don't allow this stagnation of like state-owned and state-sponsored companies and initiatives to take hold, like it happened in the Soviet Union and other places of the Eastern Bloc. And then we have distributism, which is based on Catholic social teaching. Now, social teaching in terms of Catholicism is the Catholic teachings about regarding human dignity, effectively. Now, distributism is the closest of the three to my political thought, because distributism advocates effectively the spreading out of the means of production and of the ownership of property to a wider section of the population. Now, that's precisely what I want. Thing is, I'm not a Catholic and I don't agree 100% from what I've read. Again, I'll have to read a bit more on it to understand. Now, if we're going to discuss these topics, I'll have to explain my views a bit further, I guess. As I said, I like small and medium-sized businesses, and I also advocate for national chains to a degree. I understand that, yes, when a company grows large or popular enough, they'll start creating more compartments in other cities, and those compartments will become franchises, and it spreads like that. It spreads out like that. The point I want strong antitrust laws, so that when these companies become too big to the point where they squash the competition, or they become a liability on the economy, or they need subsidies to stay afloat, instead of giving them subsidies and helping them and engaging in corporate welfare, or allowing them to destroy their competition unmolested, I want strong antitrust laws to break these companies apart into 3, 4, 5, 7 different companies, so that they can start competing again. And to prevent them from reforming Besides these laws to crush companies that don't serve the public interest, I want a system where small and medium sized businesses are subsidized. Where it's not the corporations that get the subsidies, it's small and medium sized businesses that get it to stay afloat and to promote an equal playing field, pretty much, an even playing field. At the same time, I'm concerned, and this is a bit different, this goes more into the realm of taxation and on, wages, pretty much. But then, based on effectively philosophical thought, shows that, and you see this not even through philosophy, although you can find it in the writings of ancient Greek philosophers from the classical era of ancient Greece, and you can find it in the political system of ancient Athens. You can also find this in other places. You can find this in general by observing history, that systems where there is a gigantic socioeconomic gap produce problems. They produce this inequality causes social problems. It causes social dysfunction. It destroys social harmony. It ruins things. And it's not a coincidence that the countries that are the most socialized and have the best social safety nets and welfare states are the more socially harmonized countries. And those with gigantic socioeconomic gaps, like the United States, are they're heavily disrupted right now. They're dealing with a lot of anger and a lot of animus, and they're dealing with a lot of support for genuine socialism, for actual socialism, and a lot of agitation for it, because capitalism does not seem like a good alternative in those to these people. In general, I think that the wealthy will have to accept that they'll have to effectively, there needs to be a way to get the wealthy to not have more than three times the median income that the poor have. The poor, the middle class, and the wealthy should kind of be tied in their income. Not in terms of having absolute equality or near absolute equality where everybody earns the same amount of money. That's not what I'm advocating for. I don't think that everybody should be getting the same amount of money, or everybody in a specific field or profession should be paid the same amount of money. If somebody works more hours, they should get more pay. If somebody wants to do overtime, they should get the money with overtime. If you want to work more for more money, you should be able to do that. And there should be differences in pay, according to ability, in terms of, effectiveness, in terms of whatever. If an employee is better than another employee, those two employees should not earn the same wage. At the same time that we're discussing this, pretty much what I'm saying with this is that I believe that there should be some relative social equality. There should be some system where the wealth owned and the income of citizens is different. It's in fact significantly different, but it's not big enough of a difference. It's not a big enough gap. It's not a chasm. We're not dealing with a situation where the rich are earning 7 times as much as the poor, which is effectively what's going on in the United States right now. If you look at median incomes, we're dealing with a situation where the rich are earning, 3 times as much at most. In most cases, 3 times as much or 2 times as much as the poorest, where everybody's effectively living in the same economic level, pretty much. Some people can afford some nicer things, some people can't afford those nicer things, and some people can afford some poorer and less nice things. But overall, everybody can afford a good enough and comfortable living. And that's the point I'm trying to make, and that's my economic policy. In regards to these ideas, it seems like there is no big party advocating for this. Sort of communist and socialist and Marxist agitators don't want this because that would mean that it would distract from the class struggle and it would allow capitalism to be perpetuated, and we don't want that. And the big corporations and the big donors don't want that because they want their unbrindled and unhinged capitalism that we have today, where they can get enormous and gigantic amounts of money and just sit on that pile for however long. People always talk about Bill Gates and other billionaires, all giving their money to this, giving their money to that. Well, when you're sitting on billions, of course you're handing out your money. What would you be doing other than handing out your money? And the point is, the big donors don't want to support this. Socialists, communists, whatever, don't want to support this because it goes against their interests. So I'm looking for some sort of third force in economic theory, in economic policy, in all kinds of economics that is going to advocate for this. The neoliberals aren't going to advocate for this. They've been bought out. The neoliberals were always bought out, actually. They're the most despicable form of politics, the worst politicians, but that's for another topic. The Social Democrats have also been bought out. They've effectively become neoliberal now, whereas before you could say they represented this third column of economics. Now that's not the case. Now we don't have Keynesian economics anymore. We don't have mixed economic theory. We don't have a social capitalism or democratic capitalism as it's referred to in some circles. We don't have that anymore. And I really want to bring it back. And it doesn't even have a name, as far as I can tell. It doesn't have a name. You just have to say that you're, a small and medium-sized business advocate and, a social democrat or a social liberal in terms of economic policy, or a distributist. Again, distributist. There's nothing else, pretty much. And we could solve these problems. I truly think this is the golden solutions for economic problems. I think we've descended, after the defeat of the Soviet Union and its collapse, we've descended back into neoliberal capitalism, into just unrestricted capitalism. Restrictions are being struck down day by day, and we're seeing a worse world for it. Companies are acting with impunity and can do whatever they want. Your minimum wage is lowered, your working hours are increased, nobody cares if you complain, you can't do anything to complain, the unions are near useless now, and we have to deal with the situation. We have to find a solution because this is not sustainable. And if we don't want the Red Scare to come back, if we don't want to actually be shitting our pants that a communist revolution is imminent, then we have to do something now before it gets too late. But I guess people never learn from their mistakes in history. People say we should learn from our history. Nobody learns from their history. Nobody reads the books and actually learns anything from them. It's a meaningless phrase being said to point out some meaning, some sort of, to imply some sort of higher meaning. That, I pay attention to history. No, you don't. No, you don't. I can guarantee you that 9 times out of 10 you completely ignore history. And you only take lessons from that one time that, you do. That is all. I hope I didn't rant too much. I think I was pretty on point with what I was saying, and I think you understood what I was saying, and I would like this to spark a discussion. I really hope that it reaches the heights that the post-nationalism video is, so that I can continue this series and have interesting discussions. I thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.